Good afternoon, everybody. This is our final plenary session of the 2014 National Forum. I think this has just been a fabulous, fabulous conference. If you all agree, please clap. And I personally want to thank you all for attending. And you know, I shouldn't be such a cynic, but I thought we wouldn't have as many folks as we do here for this final session because everyone needs to get home for the holidays. But it really shows your commitment and dedication to education. So I appreciate what you do. So I hope that you agree with me that during the conference that the speakers have been challenging to your thinking, that you've been exposed to new ideas, that you've met people from your state and across the country and really gathered some new ideas. I know I have, and I was telling somebody at the table, my problem now is there have been so many good ideas that I want to bring them all home, and my staff, it drives my staff crazy because I tell them, let's do this, this, and this, but my superintendent is nodding. And but in any event, I do want to take a minute to thank our corporate partners. They've helped make this National Forum a complete success, so we need to thank GE Foundation, Lumina Foundation, and USA Funds. Please give them a big hand. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce Ted Mitchell, the Undersecretary of Education. The Undersecretary oversees policies, programs, and activities related to post-secondary education, adult, career, and technical education, federal student aid, 5 White House initiatives, and the Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. Can't believe he's made time for us. That's a lot. But please join me in welcoming Undersecretary Mitchell.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, Governor, and thanks not only for what sounds like a great conference, a terrific invitation. I'm so pleased to be here, but thanks for the great work you're doing at home. You are a champion for high-quality education for all the kids in your state, and we're the beneficiaries of that, so thank you. It is terrific to be here today to talk with you, and as I look out literally in the room, there are a handful of very, very dear friends, and it's great to be back doing this work with you in D.C. Before I start, just a moment of personal privilege to tell those of you I don't know a little bit about why I do this work and what got me into it. I'm at heart a teacher. Speaking of which, are any of the state teachers of the year still around? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are what it's all about. The rest of us just exist to try to make your work better and easier. So thank you for what you do. And I want to talk about teachers and teacher education in a little bit. So I'm a teacher at heart. And I think for all of us who've spent time in a classroom, the why we do what we do often comes back to us years later. So I got a letter from a former student of mine a few years ago. And it started out the way so many of those letters do, which is, I'm not sure you remember me, but. And you always do, don't you? You always remember. And so the students and the images and the stories come back. This was a young woman who had been a student of mine when I was teaching education policy courses, and she was a great student, went off to be a teacher and then a high school principal in a rural area of Vermont. The occasion for her letter was a tragedy, though. There'd been a campus tragedy, and a young man had died. And she wrote to me and she said, you know, on reflection, I don't think that I could have gotten through that experience and understood the dynamics, the complicated dynamics between the school, the community, the press, the media, without the things that we learned in your class. But as a result, you know, I've gotten through it, the school's gotten through it, and the community's gotten through it. Thank you for what you taught me. So, not about me, but about the power of education. That story, I think, is what we're all here for. It's because we believe in the power of education to transform individual lives and for educators to transform the lives of their schools and their communities and ultimately the nation as a whole. I think that that's what brings us together And it's certainly what drives my work. So my message to you is a simple one, and I'll start and end with it, and that is that none of us can do that transformative work alone, whether it's a school or a state or a district or the federal government. We have to find ways to work together to make the education system work, and especially to make it work to change the trajectory for young people who weren't dealt a hand of high cards, the most vulnerable children and youth in our communities. In his fifth State of the Union address, President Obama laid out a clear vision that every child in America must have a chance to succeed. He said, and I quote, "Opportunity is who we are. The defining project of our generation must be to restore the promise of opportunity." And equity and opportunity are the core of that, and they're core American values. Everyone in this country, regardless of income, home language, zip code, gender, sexual identity, race, or disability, deserves the chance to learn and achieve. And today, as never before, our collective comfort and our national security rest on the quality that all, not just a few, but that all of our young people have. And there is no issue more central to promoting stability, prosperity, and mobility than preserving the American promise, the root promise that through education, children can succeed, achieve, and move into the middle class. I believe strongly that history will judge our generation by our success or our failure to reach and realize that vision of fair chances through education. And right now we have significant work to do, because where we live and work, where you live and work, the color of your skin, how much money your parents make, and how much education they received are all factors that matter too much. And that's our shared challenge, is to defeat those vectors. And the bad news is that it's just getting harder. Because not so long ago, a high school diploma and the skills it represented were enough to secure a decent wage and a foothold in the middle class. But we all know that that's changed, and it's changed forever. Those low-skilled, well-paid jobs are gone, and they're not coming back. In today's knowledge-based global economy, jobs will go to the best educated workers and workforce. Just a generation ago, this nation was first in the world in college completion rates among young adults, and today we've fallen to 12th place. As Secretary Duncan put it recently, quote, "Whether you care most about the life possibilities of a young girl in Detroit or about the long-term health of our nation's economy, the conclusion is the same. We cannot be 12th in the world in college completion and still be the country we want to be." We're not the country we want to be when 9% of students, only 9%, from low-income families can expect to earn a bachelor's degree, and not when 35% of students in one of our best-educated states, Massachusetts, still need remediation before they can begin true college work. So now more than ever before, post-secondary education, whether 4-year, 2-year, technical, or trade training, is the ticket to opportunity to the middle class. And they are the best investments that any individuals can make in their future. And I'd argue that they're the best investments that any nation can make in its future. That's why President Obama has made the goal of regaining our global lead in college completion America's educational North Star. And we've made progress. The administration has worked hard to alter the landscape for the better. Our reform agenda aims to create a world-class pre-K through 20 education system to boost student outcomes through higher standards and better assessments, to recruit and retain more highly effective teachers, especially in high-need schools, and to dramatically reduce the dropout rate at all levels. The agenda is also focused on making college more accessible and affordable and ramping up quality in post-secondary certificate and degree completion rates for all students. And we can celebrate some signs of progress. I think that you know that this year, for the first time, the nation's on-time high school graduation rate reached a high of 80% in 2012. That's a great testament to the hard work of our nation's teachers, school leaders, students, and their families. College enrollment and college completion are also on the rise, and I think the best news there is that those rates are being led by African American and Latino students. So these achievements drive our 2015 priorities, and I want to name 5 for you. Core priorities for the next year are, first, increasing equity and opportunity for all students. Second, making quality preschool available for every 4-year-old in the nation. Third, strengthening our supports for teachers and school leaders. 4, making schools safer and creating positive learning environments for all children. And last, improving affordability, quality, and success in post-secondary education. Achieving these goals is fundamentally important if we want to ensure that every child has the opportunity that I mentioned earlier. And I like to think of the first priority, the equity and opportunity priority, as the umbrella under which all of the others exist. The administration's commitment to equity underlines nearly every significant piece of work that we do. And we've acted on the idea of education as an engine of opportunity in program after program after program. Race to the Top, Promise Neighborhoods, the Investing in Innovation program. These all have an equity and opportunity theme that's palpable. This year, we're proposing a new competitive fund that focuses laser-like on the issue of equity. It's a Race to the Top fund focused on equity and opportunity exclusively. That fund will aggressively target opportunity and achievement gaps at the school and the district and the state level. But in the interest of time, I'd like to focus just on 3 of these priority areas for the rest of my time with you: early learning, teaching and leading, and higher education. So let's start with early learning. The foundation of a thriving middle class is started in the home. It continues through a quality preschool program, and it's one of the few places where social science research is relatively unambiguous. The research again and again demonstrates that children who have rich early learning opportunities are better prepared to thrive in kindergarten and prosper throughout their educational career. And every public dollar spent on high-quality preschool returns $7 in social investment through a reduced need for expenditures on other services and increased productivity and earnings when these children become adults. Early learning is one of the best investments we can make in the future of our country. And it's an area of refreshing agreement here in this town. Both Democrat and Republican leaders are stepping forward, as all of you are in your states and communities, to improve access and quality for programs that serve our youngest learners. And the public agrees. The time is now for increased opportunity and access to early learning programs. But we've got a way to go. Fewer than 3 in 10 4-year-olds are enrolled in a high-quality program. And the variation in quality is extreme. That's why President Obama has committed to a historic new investment called Preschool for All, which would build and strengthen the state systems needed to provide all low and moderate income 4-year-olds with high-quality, publicly funded preschool. Preschool for All is voluntary. It builds on a federal-state partnership in which the federal government takes the early investment lead and gradually states take over the funding. And we believe our calculations show that this can be funded, especially in the federal years, with no addition at all to the deficit. And finally, Preschool for All promotes access to full-day kindergarten and encourages the expansion of high-quality programs to include kids not only in low-income populations, but middle class as well. We also have a $250 million grant program for preschool development, which will help states, local education agencies, and local governments build the fundamental components of that high-quality preschool program. And you heard it here first. Applications will be available at the end of July for that program. So we'll continue to work with all of you and with states and communities to ensure that our youngest citizens have access to high-quality early learning that prepares them for success in school and life. Let me turn to teachers. The President's plan for 2015 continues and builds upon a significant focus on teaching and learning from the administration's first term. For instance, several years ago, the administration officially launched the Recognizing Educational Success, Professional Excellence, and Collaborative Teaching, or RESPECT project. Throughout the year of 2012, the department staff and teachers held conversations across the country to develop a shared vision for transforming the teaching profession. As a result of that, last year we released the RESPECT Blueprint, what we hoped is a tool for districts and communities that reflects the shared vision statement for transforming the teaching profession. It was co-written by leaders of national organizations representing teachers, district and state superintendents, school boards, the Department of Education, and teachers themselves. The Obama administration has proposed significant investments going forward that support teachers and leaders who are doing the hard daily work in classrooms and communities. I'll focus on one, technology. You heard from Sal Khan yesterday, the power of technology to transform the classroom. How was he, by the way? Was he all right? As a former board member, I need to check in on him. That's good. That's good. I'll let him know. So technology, whether it's Sal Khan or things that you're working on and using in your own classrooms, can empower teachers to provide effective instruction and to personalize learning at a level that we've never been able to imagine until now. But right now, fewer than 30% of America's schools have the broadband they need to connect to today's technology. Under the administration's ConnectEd initiative, 99% of American students will have access to next-generation broadband by 2017. And this is particularly important in America's rural communities that are too often afterthoughts in education reform. Not anymore. That connectivity will help transform the classroom experience for all students, regardless of income. And earlier this year, the President announced that the Federal Communications Commission will invest $2 billion over the next 2 years to dramatically expand high-speed internet connectivity for both America's schools and our libraries. We're also working with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards on a project that we're calling Teach to Lead. It's an initiative that aims to expand student outcomes by creating opportunities for teacher leadership in their local schools and districts. And it's aimed particularly at teachers who want to stay in the classroom, but also want to find a broader scope for their work, their leadership, and their ideas. Too long, the idea of leadership has been connected with leaving the classroom, and we want to create opportunities for leadership to be expressed through the classroom. Teaching, as you guys know, is very hard work, and learning to teach is a very complicated process. And so one of our other initiatives is to work to make teacher preparation programs as good as they can be, and in particular to meet some of the new challenges that teachers are facing, whether it's focusing and doubling down on STEM subjects and working hard to get girls and students of color into STEM programs. We need to better prepare teachers to excel in diverse environments. We need to help teachers learn how to incorporate technology into teaching and classrooms. We need to challenge teacher education institutions to do all of those things and more. That's why we're moving forward with a comprehensive plan to strengthen teacher preparation, starting this summer with a nationwide conversation to gather broad-based input for new regulations that we aim to propose later this summer. Our ultimate aim with the plan is to build on state and districts' hard work in developing systems that recognize excellence and identify programs, on the other hand, that need improvement. We want to encourage states to incorporate more meaningful outcome measures as they think about the quality of teacher preparation programs. And we're thinking of things like placement in high-needs schools, retention rates in the profession, satisfaction of program graduates, satisfaction of district and school employers, and, yep, student learning outcomes. We also want to help states and districts identify and spotlight programs that produce teachers who feel prepared, who are prepared, and who are creating the kinds of learning environments that create opportunity for students no matter where they come from. Finally, let me talk a little bit about improving affordability, quality, and success in post-secondary education. So now I'm actually getting to something that I'm responsible for instead of the other stuff that I just sort of say those people. Improving college access and completion is no longer a luxury for us as a nation or for individuals, whether it comes to job attainment, employment security, or national security and national economic development. We know we need to prepare more people to get to and through college successfully. But there are issues. Rising costs are pricing the middle class out of college. Student debt levels, whether individual student debt levels or aggregate student debt levels, are rising alarmingly. Despite a recent rise, the percentage of students who enter college in their first year who graduate has been stagnant, and we need to increase that. I know we can achieve President Obama's goal of making America first in the world again, but it's not going to be easy. And we're going to have to do all that we can to make higher ed more accessible and affordable, and to focus, as we do so, on increasing completion rates and the ultimate value of a degree. We've made some good progress. For instance, the number of students able to afford college with Pell Grants has grown by 50% to nearly 9 million Pell Grant recipients. We've published new tools on our websites to help students and families make good choices about where to go to college. The college scorecard and the financial aid shopping sheet are two examples. We've secured 100 commitments from college and university leaders to expand college opportunity and access from a wide range, from small liberal arts college to giant state universities. And they made that commitment in a place where you are always held accountable, which is in the White House, in front of the president. We're bringing them back in a couple of months to figure out how well they're making progress. And although it's going to sound like a small thing, it's a big thing. I don't know how many of you subscribe to The Week magazine, but they've got a section called Boring But Important, so file this away in the Boring But Important category. We've dramatically simplified the FAFSA form, the federal form that students use to, thank you. Thank you. It's, I wish I could take credit for it before I came on. But because we now can monitor these things, just yesterday the director of Student Financial Aid told me that the average time that it takes someone to fill out the FAFSA form online has gone down to 20 minutes, which I will say again, I've said it before, is 20 minutes too long as far as I'm concerned, but we'll work on it. But that is, as you know, a major barrier for students applying for financial aid, and we're happy to have gotten down to the 20-minute mark. But we have to do more, which is why we've proposed significant funding to increase affordability and access over the next several years. Just this May, we announced a grant competition, the first in the world competition, $75 million investment fund that hopes to seed innovations in higher education that either increase access of low-income students, that lower the cost and the price of education on those campuses by using technology or other means, that improve outcomes, higher completion rates, or that measurably add to the value of a student's degree. We purposefully left it broad because we just wanted people's best ideas. The application process closed on June 30th, and as the computer system was regaining its breath after the onslaught of applications, we tallied them up and there were 595 applications under the First in the World program, which I think suggests that the higher education community is ready, willing, and able to bring forward its great ideas around this agenda. We're also proposing $7 billion over 10 years for the College Opportunity and Graduation Bonus, which would provide annual grants to institutions based on the number of on-time graduates who are Pell Grant recipients, directly rewarding institutions for doing what we know we all need to do, which is increase the graduation rate of low-income students. And as you may have read, through executive action, the President has taken decisive steps that students and families are able to manage student debt by increasing access to income-based borrowing plans. So the most prominent of these is the PAY program, where instead of a fixed dollar amount, students pay a fixed percentage of their income, no more than 10%. And this helps students who are having difficulty in this challenging economy, but it also helps students who are moving into professions that are tragically and woefully underpaid, but very necessary and very welcome in our society. Overall, the 2015 budget reflects this administration's commitment to the Pell Grant program and will fully fund the maximum award of $5,830 per student in 2015. We're investing a lot, over $150 billion a year in student aid, with good reason, because every one of those dollars goes to help promote a student's success. But we've also been investing our resources to increase transparency and visibility in using data to better inform student choices, family choices, and institutional action. We're investing in the creation of a sensible and constructive college ratings system that will help inform students and families about outcomes, graduation rates, costs, and that simultaneously encourages institutions to improve by giving them easy ways to compare what they're doing with what missioned institutions are doing. And finally, it rewards schools that provide the best value for those most in need through recognition and, we hope, eventually financial rewards in programs like I just mentioned. Ultimately, our aim is to reward schools that provide the best value for those most in need so that those schools can continue, expand, and be models for others. As Secretary Duncan has pointed out, we're very much aware of how much we'll need the benefit of your guidance and wise counsel as we move through each of these programs over the next year. Positioning all of our students to succeed and positioning our nation to lead in the 21st century will require our best collective thinking. As the President has said, America has never come easy. Our freedom, our democracy has never been easy. The America we want for our kids, a rising America where honest work is plentiful and communities are strong, where prosperity is widely shared and opportunity for all, lets us go as far as our dreams and toil will take us. None of that is easy. But if we work together, if we summon what is best in each of us, I know it's within our reach, end quote. With that in mind, let me tell you that as I embark on this work, I'm always going to call on what's best in me to do this work, and I hope that you will also let me call on you as we do this work. Let me thank you again for bringing such energy to this conference and this meeting, for allowing me to talk with you today, and for working every day to ensure a rising America and a bright future for all of us. So let's work together to make this year a year of powerful, constructive, and breakthrough action in serving the kids who need our service the most. Thanks a lot. the clock tells me that we have time for some questions or comments, if anybody has either.
Kathy Assini, 2014 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year.
Congratulations
Thank
and
you.
thank you.
I have a question of looking at the budget. There was and I haven't followed it as closely as I should have, but the mental health first aid in the schools, is that still in the works, the training there for the teachers?
It's still in the budget proposal, yeah. And thanks for reading it so closely.
Joe Garcia, Colorado, and I have so many questions I don't know where to start. Let's start with FAFSA, though. I know you said it's been simplified. I also understand there's a proposal that might take it down to as few as 2 or 3 questions, or link it to to one's tax form. And I just wonder, is there anything else on the horizon that you see that's going to further simplify it and make it possible for more kids to get access?
Yep. So you are now inviting me to geek out on that issue. I'll resist, but not entirely. Yes, there are active proposals in the works to either eliminate the form altogether or to reduce it to two or three questions. In either scenario, one of the other things, and sorry, I'm going to geek out for just a minute. There are several problems. The length of the form is just one of them. Another significant problem, and those of you who work in high schools know this well, is that the timing of the notification of eligibility is all backwards. We really want students to know how much aid they're going to receive while they're making their choices about which college to apply to. And so you can solve that problem and a lot of the FAFSA problems by using IRS data and not doing all of the asset list, but simply using prior tax years. If we can get to the prior tax year use, then I think we get very close to solving both of those problems, to allow students to know what their eligibility is as they're shopping for colleges and reducing the burden on families and making FAFSA complete.
Hi, Maria Worthen with iNACOL. I want to first thank you for your leadership on moving our education system to new models of learning as you did in your past life. And I'm curious to know, as we've seen the Senate put out its proposal on HEA reauthorization and the House is preparing to do the same, what can we do in the Higher Education Act to make sure that schools of education are preparing teachers to teach in new learning environments? There seems to be a big disconnect between what they're being prepared to do and the new realities of the classroom.
Yep. How many deans of schools of education are in the room? Oh, good. I can almost get away with it. So I think yes. And thanks for your question. So I do think that we have lots to do in teacher education, and I think that one of the things we ought to be looking at is a competitive grant program. And it's not in the president's budget proposal. It'd be interesting to see if it could be maneuvered in a different way. But I think we need to do for teacher ed, for teachers' colleges, teacher prep programs, what we have done for colleges in the first in the world, which is to say, here are some objectives that we have. We're not going to foist our answers to the question on you, schools of education. We want you to wrestle with this problem. So tackling how can we train teachers to really be avid consumers of and perhaps even producers of technology in their classrooms? I think that would be one of the priorities that I would put into a program such as that. Second, I think that we need to make it more possible for states to be able to license non-traditional education program providers to be able to give teacher education institutions a bit of a race for their money, but more importantly, to create new models that then might be incorporated into more traditional programs. You're going to create an innovation sector in teacher ed that is perhaps a little less regulated than the current system. And then third, and this is what we're working on in the department this summer, I think that we and states need to set up criteria for evaluating teacher ed programs that create metrics on some of the very things that we know we want teachers to be able to know and be able to do. We need to ask them if they've learned that. We need to find evidence of them incorporating some perhaps new practices in their classroom, and we need to see that those are having an effect, and then feed that information back to the schools of ed so that they can improve.
My name is Brett Begum. I'm the Oregon State Teacher of the Year. I'm the first special education teacher from my state to win this award. So this is probably a question that's for Michael Uden, but he's not here, so you get it.
I'll channel Michael.
Okay, thank you. He's the Undersecretary with Special Education, for those who don't know. We've had a recent change in federal financial aid that graduates who have a modified diploma can now be eligible for federal financial aid, which was not possible before. We had a lot of students that were not able to even access trade programs because they couldn't get financial aid. In the Department of Education, is there any plans to make some supports for schools and teachers to be funneling students, say a young man who has dyslexia and just had to have a modified diploma but wants to be a car mechanic and go to trade school? Are there plans on your end to be making some supports for us to get those kids into programs that are going to get them employment?
Yep. Great question. And I had lunch with Michael just 2 days ago, and we're looking at ways of providing technical assistance in that domain. But I also want to, it's technical assistance not specifically there, but as you know, we've also made, in addition to the financial aid change, we've also made a major commitment to now begin to look at student outcomes quite seriously on a state-by-state and district-by-district basis. We're thrilled with that. And so part of the technical assistance is really geared around that, but as a part of it, helping special ed teachers at the high school level think about this next step, because it hasn't been a natural connection. So as we think about outcomes, that's one of the outcomes that we hope to provide assistance on. Last question.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Renwick. I'd like to ask questions. I appreciate your presentation today. As far as I can tell, I'm the only administrator that's here. I'm a high school principal. And you've talked a lot about teacher professional development, and I think the teachers in the room would agree with me that that's very important. As an administrator, it's something that I feel is extremely important, the value that I've gotten just from being here. Do you have any plans, or are there any plans that might be in the works to systemically increase the ability for administrators and teachers to get professional development? It's always something that we have to struggle with. It's not something that's easily put into our calendars. It might be a local issue, but I think it's a national one as well.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I think if this were an easy problem, we would have solved it a long time ago. But the department is very interested in looking at the way Title II funds are being allocated and creating some flexibility there too for districts and states to be able to think creatively and use professional development dollars in new ways. One of the challenges that we all have with professional development is really assessing the efficacy of professional development programs. And so we'd like to, I think, link those things as sort of new experiments using Title II dollars with ways of trying to assess efficacy and then learning from those examples. But it's a great issue. Thank you all so much. Just such a privilege to be with you today. Thanks.
Thank you again for joining us, Undersecretary Mitchell. Quick housekeeping, I found what salmon looks like, so please be sure to fill out the evaluation forms. The speakers we chose, the issues that we put on the table for you the last 3 days come from those kind of evaluations. We wouldn't have our 10th highest turnout for the longest period of time if we didn't have information from you on what you desired from this National Forum. The National Forum would never be the same without all of you, and I want to thank you so much for coming here, for asking the tough questions, for being open to learning new things, and for networking with your peers across the country. I want to leave you with a couple parting thoughts. ECS is here for you, every one of you. We have an information hotline that can answer your questions within 24 hours, and if not, we know how to find information that hopefully someone else will be able to share. We can visit your state to provide legislative testimony or technical assistance to your interim committees or your task force. Our website is unparalleled in the amount of resources it contains, including up to 40,000 different educational policies that you can track through numerous taxonomies. You will find our state policy database and our research studies database, and you will find links to all of our reports, the ones I've mentioned in self-promotion of ECS, the ones you heard about in the concurrent sessions, and the ones we haven't even talked about yet. You will find information on education issues all across the education spectrum, from early learning to K-12, from post-secondary to workforce. As you are getting ready to leave the conference with a head full of ideas, a briefcase full of papers, I want to leave you with one more thought. Think of ECS as your expert resource for all things education. The person who will give you facts, but not an opinion. We will meet you where you're at. We'll help you get where you want to go. We're on your team. In fact, everyone in this room is on the same team. So let's try to work together to give our kids the best educational system in the world. We hope to see all of you and more at our 50th anniversary of the Interstate Compact, which will take place next year in Denver. That will be June 29th through July 1st, 2015. And also, please don't forget the Winter Commissioner Meeting, which will take place in the great state of Nevada in Las Vegas, December 3rd through 4th. Thank you, safe travels, happy 4th of July, and we look forward to serving you in your states.